It's story time. 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 All right, what episode are we on? Episode 17. It's kind of crazy to think I've done so many of these black and white color pencil drawings in line with all of this. Everything that you've seen thus far are pieces that held significant meaning, huge checkpoints in the journey through this concept of pareidolia, nephelococcygia, ambiguous textures, and all of that. This whole journey through YouTube has not included all of these studies that I've done in between these pieces, portraits, studies of hands, gestures, studies of random objects that I just felt like I saw something in. I may or may not do like an intermittent episode where I show some of the random drawings that I've done in between and around this series, because I don't just jump into these pieces willy-nilly. I work around studies, and these things kind of help reinforce the next big piece. And then once I'm in something, I'm kind of all in, aside from, living life outside of these works. That being said, we are here for episode 17. We just came from episode 16 talking about The Metamorph Is Us, a journey through ourselves, discovering what we kind of consume, how we cocoon that into something functional, and what we grow into as a result, and how that comes back around to reinforce future stacking metamorphoses as time goes on and we live our multiple lives in each of our lifelines, our metaphysical lifelines. From there, we actually, I moved forward into seeing who I had become so far. What was I personally as a result of this journey through the iconographies? How did I see myself? Because I was looking at facets of the self up until this point, but I didn't really take all that into account yet until this drawing here, where I was like, wait, who am I now that I understand all of these facets of the self, of my yin, of my yang, and that balance of the two? Where am I in that so far? Have I learned anything? But before we go into this deeply, I'm going to do my standard segment of the random question generator, where I find a random question online, answer it here, loosen up the gab, and end it with a little pun, a little art-related pun. So the question that I got this morning is, who was your favorite teacher and why? I have two answers for that question. I'm going to answer it first with my first real human teacher. He's a teacher that will always be an influence in my personality, in my approach to art, in my practice, in my attitude towards art, towards people. He was my teacher, Mr. Armetta, from high school. He still works at the high school that I went to. He's just such a great teacher and a great artist, and I'm glad that he found where he fits and can serve his people. He definitely did a number on me, so whatever art I do is it's kind of shrapnel from his creative, explosive energy. I am one of his, I was a ball of energy, and then he popped it through our class, and I kind of scattered in all these directions, which was the best thing you could do for an artist, to kind of burst its bubble and show it what it could be. But he was my favorite artist because he was, one, hilarious. He knew how, or not artist, the artist and teacher, an artist as a teacher as an artist, but he was hilarious. He made learning about art really fun. A lot of my teachers kind of were too serious about it. He would crack jokes about every part of the process and kind of wake us up with these remarks that would make us think like, wait, whoa, he's not serious about this. Even though this is something we really need to learn, he kind of breaks that typically structured approach to art education. He was also really fun with us kids. Like, he would be a teacher, but also a friend. Obviously not too close, but close enough where we felt like he understood us and was listening and considered that into his future lesson plans. And he always had great things to say in critiques. He was balanced with critiques. He would be critical, but also compliment what you did well, in hopes that you did more of that, but also touched upon things that, might benefit the next piece. He wanted to see us grow and evolve, but also he wanted us to have fun, and that's why he was my favorite teacher. That being said, my other favorite teacher was the color pencil. The color pencil that I use to this day in all of the color pencil you see here, the color pencil that you've seen in all of these works, the black color pencil. As much as I learned about drawing with a pencil, I didn't get as much confidence in my skills and my style until I really really stumbled into color pencil, just because it was the only pencil that I had access to in a class. And then I just ironically loved that I couldn't erase with it. I would be like, oh man, I really got to commit. I gotta anticipate in my head where I'm going with this drawing before I put that line down. And then as time went on, I was starting to draw with more confidence, and I also really loved the way that it gave me a variety of strokes, and it taught me about a variety of strokes with one tool and how much you could do, how much you can accomplish with one tool. And when I learned that you could do so much with one simple tool, any tool that came thereafter, I realized was another color pencil, where you could learn a simple route and then expand on that with that one route. And I was talking to my cousin the other day and about this concept of, if you master one thing, what you learn as a process of mastering that one thing is something you can apply to any other skill set. The process of developing that skill, the process of maintaining that practice, the process of applying those skills towards something beyond the practice, and evolving and evolving and evolving and learning from things around you to help boost your intent and your confidence and your approach to any mastery. So what I mastered was the color pencil, and then that, like, I am a drawer through that. I drew, so when I paint, I drew with paint. When I sculpt, I drew with sculpture. My mastery of this color pencil taught me how I tend to approach all other things in my life. When I think, I'm drawing those thoughts. That's why a lot of my current pieces, the Peillustrations, I think through the drawing, and the drawing becomes the thoughts. Although now I'm coming to a point where let's try to apply this mastery practice with the pencil and start to write the words that kind of summarize the general consensus with my cluttered thoughts. But yeah, that is my answer to my favorite teacher, or teachers in this case. And let's close that segment off with another art pun. This one goes like this. How come the artist is in jail? And you might know this one. She was framed. Oh. I'm gonna let you sit with that one while I take a sip of coffee. Okay, that out of the way, let's talk about what's here. Who is this person staring off into the distance, into the back of your room, just around you? Like, they're clearly not staring at the viewer. They're staring at maybe what you're staring at right now. Just something worth your interest, something that captivates your attention. Not saying I captivate it, but you're here now, you're looking. That's what this character is looking at. Captivation itself. The void in which all life emerges, which is what captivates this character here. This character isn't me as I see it, as you see it. It isn't the character that I see in the mirror when I'm trying to put myself together, see what needs fixing or cleaning up or whatever. That is a exoskeleton to the me that I was trying to capture in this piece titled Dom. Not necessarily because my name is Dom, but because Dom is the suffix that suggests a state of being. Like kingdom is a state of being, a kingship, the kingdom. It's a state of being. And I was trying to reflect on my current state of being. How did I feel? What was being me like? The reflection that I was gazing into when I made this piece was not a mirror, but a thought process. I was trying to capture my soul, my influences, my effect, my energy. That is all in a reflection of your intuition. That natural drive that you have, that is a result of your influences and your genetics and your your memories and your, everything around and in between that isn't your image. It's ironic that it came out into an image that I feel like I still resemble, rather than, or like the image I'm trying to avoid. There's just a strange irony in it. Like, I drew what some would say was me at the time. I did have that beard. I did have that haircut. But it isn't me, because when you look closely, which is what it takes to see someone for who they are, you need to really get up close and personal and kind of reverse engineer all the things that make them walk the walk the way they do. You start to notice I don't know, just how much goes into being somebody, how much goes into being who you are. Like, you never judge a book by its cover, you read its contents. And we are all such a deep, deep story. We are all constructed of so many moments that can be observed on so many microscopic levels. Even the most basic, for lack of a better word, person has come to that conclusion for very complicated reasons, even if they're not aware of the engineering that went into themselves. I think a lot of complication can come from the awareness of that. A lot of people can appear basic because they are ignoring that next step of awareness towards themselves, but once they actually break down all the multifacets that make themselves, they are still that basic structure, but at least they know what process went into them. But here I was tapping into all of the textures that I was learning from that kind of built my journeys so far, like the cannabis textures, the buds themselves, the broken up buds, the different strains. I think I had like 20 different strains just to make my hair and eyebrows. I wish I could load a better picture, but my streaming, my OBS would not process it. It always says encoding error. So we'll work with what we got. We have this for reference. If you do want to see it up close with a little bit more detail, you can go into my website, linked in my description for all my videos here, and look for Dom in my drawing section. So yeah, I built my hairline from all this growth, and within the hairline, and using that symbol for growth, I infused, like I learned to do in all my previous works, to infuse like memories, like the guy sitting down here with his leg on his knee, or another guy sitting here gazing into the colors, a group of people hanging out here, a couple people kind of peeking behind them, a girl bending over here into a space, a guy with his arm around another guy pointing up at the castle, a guy over here kind of screaming out to his friend. Like, it's all these memories, and it's our memories that kind of reinforce our direction of growth, and build our hairline, metaphorically speaking. I got a guy up against a tree of the roots of his hair, the roots of his memories, and even here we have a tree trunk that has a door to kind of invite the viewer, because this whole process was about getting to know myself, but also inviting the people around me into my process, into my personality, into who I was. This art is a very important part of an artist introducing themselves to the community, just a way for people to get to know who we are. A lot of artists tend to just be complicated and have difficulty translating in more simple terms who we are. So this little door is kind of a microcosm of this whole piece, that this is one door that I am kind of leaving half cracked to suggest that it's open to explore, and that this little door is a microcosm that invites you into the memories that have accumulated to this result. Who am I now in this one moment in time that will soon be a memory? One of these characters is on a jumping off of a swing set, kind of an early memory for me, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have gone on a swing, got swung to the highest level that you could comfortably swing, and then you jump off to land, and it was just this, like, I don't know, rite of passage for a lot of kids to swing as high as they can and jump, and some people didn't make the jump, like some people don't want to do that, but some people kind of want to push themselves to their peak and see how far they can launch themselves. And this whole process was kind of me swinging, kind of getting to this high point of myself, this higher self, this level of ascension in self-awareness, not like I'm super spiritual or anything, but just this hyper awareness is symbolized by that swing set. And then at this point, I was ready to make that jump and acknowledge who I was at this peak moment so far. And he's like kind of playing foosball, like he is the foosball, and I am that higher self that is kind of witnessing this whole process, is that deity behind it all that's kind of holding that corner of the foosball and flicking it through these two thumbs up, which is just a symbol for my attitude towards myself, that throughout all of the kind of depressing parts of my life where I was really questioning who I was, and did I deserve this, and like, will I be okay? Will like just all these regrets in life. They were poor attitudes, storm clouds over my what could be seen as a beautiful landscape. I had to kind of let the rain, and then after the fact, I could see it all in the growth that came from these moments in my life, good or bad, and in my forehead, near the pineal gland, or whatever you want to call it, or equivalent, my intention to jump from my swing went through the goalposts of that positive attitude in the end, or in this moment, which was, I guess, really just the beginning of actually accessing who I was. This is like, as much as I tried to dive into myself, it was still surface level, because I'm pulling in visual influences that built my practice, but that practice was really the beginning of what it would take to explore my intentions and my early inspirations that made me who I was, and maybe who I really am, regardless of how far I go in life. It's like you never really change. You're the same person growing up, but with a different level of maturity that makes you handle yourself differently, but you are always that same person. So I got to this point, but I actually, after the fact, started reverting, regardless of skill sets. I started reverting into more of my childhood type approaches to life, because that was who I am, that child in me. And we'll get into that later on. I'm not going to, break that seal just yet. The next piece will do a lot of that for that point, but here let's stick on the surface. So yeah, this, now we get to this face. Like he's jumping through this goalpost, and behind the goalpost, kind of suggesting this mental space, we see that landscape that we saw in the reflections, in the pacifier, in the space behind the higher self, conflict with the ego, the superego, the id. There's this landscape of like mountains and ocean or river of some sort, and a shore. It's to suggest that behind the surface there is a huge landscape to explore in all of us. So much to get to know, for others to get to know, and for you to explore yourself. It's a space for everyone. Everyone has that space where you yourself and the people around you can explore, but you kind of have to access it and become a guide many times so that people don't get lost or hurt in that wild space that is you. You can kind of be a guide to show them all the places that you have to offer. But even as a guide, let's say you're a tour guide at a museum, someone might come into your space, into your museum, as you're talking about an artwork that's on the wall, and they might tell you something you don't know about yourself, that space, that metaphorical space. And but it's kind of nice to be a knowledgeable person about yourself, so when you invite people in, you have somewhere to start, and then you kind of grow and get to know each other with more ease, rather than hoping for the best. Although it's great to have that attitude regardless. Then we have these hands kind of reaching for the attitude. They're all the brow line, which can many times make a frown face, is reaching for those thumbs up, trying to reach for the character that launched themselves through, maybe to catch them, make them feel comfortable with this choice. And in between that intention, we have this turtle that is kind of emerged from the shore and suggests this approach to be slow and steady, because slow and steady wins the race. Like, yes, I've had this urgency to make sense of myself, of my mistakes, of any successes and why they were successes, or make sense of all of this. But at this point, I realized, okay, you have an awareness of your intentions now. Now, in order to not miss too much in the process that will come after, let's take this slowly and explore this landscape with a little bit more patience, even though this style looks erratic and kind of careful but rushing. I kept wanting to remind myself, at the center of myself, to maintain more ease to my approach to my self-awareness and what I'm looking at and what I'm doing with that. Oh, you can't really see it, but there's a woman lounging back here on the brow, and there's a character right here kind of spying on her from the other brow. I don't know, I just felt like there was a relationship between the brow, and the brow being a major part of expressions that the face can hold, but this is all kind of metaphorical for just my general approach as a creative and as a person, and that your relationship with your brows can suggest a relationship with yourself. And like, one is this yin figure that's lounging, and the other is a yang figure that's admiring, and like their respect for each other's space can kind of define your emotional state. So also, a lot of these hands are like derivatives of a dance that I would do to music with my hands, and that dance was one of those external influences that kind of helped me understand my physical self, how I wanted to move, how I wanted to groove, how I felt myself in any moment, and just my general approach to space, spatial awareness, and self-awareness, and like what you do with these phalanges and what they reach for says a lot about you. And I would always reach for rhythm and motion and patterns and expression. And so this whole identity is composed of all these expressive positions that go from one to the next. And I felt like my life was kind of that dance, and your life is a accumulation that leads to this identity that a lot of people can see or overlook, and what you can see or overlook. But within that space, I have these two eyes, and the two eyes are built out of a glass piece that we'll see more as we scroll down. But I got a glass piece from a girl at this time where I was doing a lot of trades with the artists in my community, and it's not really associated directly to her, but I liked the synchronicity of this, one of my first trades, and her pseudonym, which at the time was Clarity, and I liked to use her glass pendant for the eyes, the Cyrus of the eyes, to suggest or instigate this approach to self-awareness with a new level of clarity. And in this process of self-awareness, trading with my community, getting to know other creatives was a part of developing another level of clarity with who I am, how do I want to be seen among my peers, how am I seen among my peers, how do we affect each other, and how you yourself are more your influence on others rather than really your influence on yourself, or that there is a connection between the two that are equivalent. If you don't have any influence on any level with even the most intimate levels of your community, that could be your immediate family, or extended family, or even more extended family, your friends, then you haven't really understood yourself yet. You haven't really explored what you have to bring to the table, or what you are to put on any table, whether it's bringing something or just being a bowl on the table that carries things or keeps things in a space. It doesn't always have to be something hyperactive. It can be a pillow. It could be a cloud that just provides a little mist. But it's important to see your effect on others in hopes that you can understand what it is that you are and what there is to work on in order to evolve that into something even more impactful or less, depending on if you're a fire or a blade, or if you're a blade, you don't want to. If you realize that you're a blade, you don't want to swing willy-nilly. You want to develop a practice that helps you have more form and control. But if you're oxygen, you want to find your way in every nook and cranny, because life feeds on oxygen, and so on and so forth. But in this, we have also the clarity being held carefully with two hands, kind of cupping like a bowl. And it was regardless of how hyperactive my energy tended to be, there was a part of myself that was carefully carrying this intent to establish clarity of self-awareness. So that's why the eyes are kind of cupped. It's almost like they're trying to keep the water of clarity from seeping through the fingers. We go down. A big part of this that you'll notice is the smile. I don't smile much in public, although I've been working on it more and more. For the most part, I don't smile much. I mean, if I'm laughing, yes, I'm smiling, but I don't really smile as a natural reaction to things. But I realized throughout this process of my art that art was my smile. When I created, I was showing my teeth. But showing your teeth can be like grilling somebody or smiling. My approach to my art decided whether I was smiling or snarling. But in this, I really wanted to smile gently. Not a big, bold smile, but a gentle smile with a sense of awe in it. And I didn't want to touch that smile with any mark. I wanted that smile to be a derivative of the infinite space that surrounded me, that whiteness that has no contact, that is untouched. I kind of wanted to keep my smile protected in the same kind of way from my egoic influence where I want to control everything and fill it with as much as possible, like that smile being full of that white void, infinite space in comparison to the clusterfuck of like ornate textures really says a lot about this. Like, I don't even know if I have the words for that. I hope you just kind of get the feeling. Also, you'll see that the lips are built out of fists because throughout this process of getting to know myself, even outside of art, just my relationship with friends and intimate relations and family relations, and I realized the power of the voice and the intentions behind your words and how they can pack a punch. They might be right next to that smile, but depending on what you do with the lips that frame that smile, that can decide whether you're smiling at somebody internally or externally, or snarling at somebody, grilling them internally or externally. Also, there's a little soul patch where there's a peaceful part of myself sitting in cross-legged, and they're kind of trying to make sense of all of this identity. They feel overwhelmed, but they're sitting with it, and they know slowly but surely they will make sense of this. Like, who are they? There's no rush. But, at some point, I mean, I think during this series, I feel like I am this character, but I am standing up and roaming the space and kind of outwardly expressing what I see as I roam this landscape that is myself at the time. This beard was one of my pride and joys. Literally, although my mom didn't agree with the beard, it was a pride and joy. I loved the fucking girth of it. Like, it was a bold statement. As this piece is. I feel like this is another beard that I grew. But I kind of wanted the portrait that I referenced for this to be kind of kingly or royal or regal, I guess. And the beard kind of suggests this regalness and also this growth, like a personal growth, kind of expressed ironically in an external form, but this is a metaphor for internal growth and the boldness of this internal growth. And like the hairline with all the memories, I infused a bunch of different memories in this space that I'm not going to go into it because some of them are pretty intimate. You'll find them if you want to. But within growth, there are memories that stick. And the memories that stick tend to be important triggers or catalysts for change in all future memories and things that you reference to that that help you decide how to act in the moment, the way the past can influence you. So we also see the mind castle, which is kind of a framing device for all of this growth. The mind castle and a lot of my pieces were usually within the mindscape. But at this point, I felt like I could take that intention of consolidating all of those memories and what it was that I experienced in my life and plop it off the plot of land in my mind and kind of adorn it on my head as a constant reminder to keep myself in check. It's almost like when you think of a regal character in any show or even in real life, there is a composure, regardless of their personality and how that might have affected the civilians of their time. That's not related, but the idea of a level of composure that the crown suggests, and that this crown was helping me remind myself of my role, that I rule myself. I have control over who I can be, or how I can react to who I am. What I do with my role in life, how much I do with it, and how I compose it. Like composure, like to compose music. Like you have all these instruments, you have all these levels of skills, but how you compose those instruments into a melody can completely change all. Like you can get a million songs from one orchestra, and you are the orchestra. Your composure of yourself is the orchestra, and what you know of yourself and what to do with it is the music that comes as a result. There's also a little part of myself that's outside of the gates of that mind palace, that's kind of leaning over the wall, and they're trying to observe from a different vantage point what this soul character is observing. There's something like root in this character, and then there's almost like, for lack of a better word, like an awareness from the crown chakra, and they kind of come together in this self-identity space, if that makes sense. So let's move down towards what we see is wrapping around the neck of this identity. And this suggestion of a constriction around the neck shows what your egoic personality can do at any given time. Your ego, which tends to have a stigma to it, that you have such an inflated ego, or you're letting your ego drive that, or what a big ego, like your ego's toxic. Like the ego is what decides what an ego is how much awareness you have over yourself. And you can have as ironic or oxymoronic as it sounds, you can have a humble ego, which is a ego that is composed, that you have that power, but what you do with it and how you share it decides how it's perceived, or if it's perceived. But there is this primal part of you that is the ego, that kind of is that child in you that can run amok and draw all over the walls. But yes, you want to draw all over the walls in some cases, but what you draw on those walls can become a mess, depending on your control over your hands, or a masterpiece that can be enjoyed by the community. But it's still the same child, that ego that is driving the intent to share this energy. So this ego, the dragon, the yin and the yang in one, has always the access to take your life through its actions and strangle you with its actions, or it can adorn you like a nice scarf or warm you like a nice scarf from the coldness of the world. How you take that tool that gives you access to yourself and that self-awareness can either be your noose or your scarf. And in this case, you can't tell if your identity is gasping for air, or if they're smiling with their fashion. It's this ambiguous place of like, will they, won't they? Like, what will happen? It's up to you. It's up to the viewer to recognize what it's doing to you. Like, do you feel if you were to feel constricted staring at this, is it because inside you're resonating in terms of you have a toxic relationship with yourself, with that ego, and you feel like it's constricting you? Or do you feel like almost relieved when you see this, like a level of safety, an ironic safety, that there is this danger of power within you, but you know it enough to make it look good or make it parts of yourself function well, and that is just another accessory of your identity. It really depends on the viewer, but there's also this, what decides the relationship is this, the kind of grip that it has on your internal dialogue. This isn't a ear, but it's an ear to something within you, an internal conversation that you have with these id, ego, super ego facets of yourself that compose your primal identity. And this dragon has one claw gauged through its ear and has a grip on this internal conversation. But again, it can be a penetrating pain where it keeps saying sharp things that hurt you or harm you, and then as a result you project that out. Or it's an accessory that can glisten like a diamond earring. It's a conversation with yourself that comes out as almost inspiring or reinforcing others. Like, you can reinforce yourself with this relationship with your ego, and that can project onto others, where it's like your relationship with your internal dialogue can express as a reinforcing dialogue that you thereafter put onto others, or you share that dialogue. But again, it's up to your relationship with this image to decide whether these are accessories that can be enjoyed, or weapons that can take its head clear off, or stab it. So that is the neck of this identity. But like the idea of clarity, the glass piece that I put in the eyes, I explored my community, and I feel like your community is your metaphorical body. Your relationship with your community is kind of an expression of your external health, which is an expression of your internal health. Like, and for me to interact with all these creatives and make these fair trades where they made me something and I made them something, it showed this clear intent to make connections, and those connections were something that I can lean on like you would your body, and those connections can be something that take you somewhere, like your body walking forward, or your body is the thing that can receive and embrace. So your connections with the community is what would allow you to access and embrace, that would make you feel comfortable where you're at. So all of the body is built out of these glass sculptures that were trades that I had with my community, with people that were, I guess I felt at the time, were like-minded and understood what was fascinating to me about life, or what was inspiring about life, and the way they expressed it was differently than I did, but came from the same root space. They had the same kind of relationship with their ego. They just had a different tool that expressed that relationship. Like Sean Daddy, great artist. You could see the little panda next to the tree. Fucking Ryan Kuhn. Fucking all these artists. Dosh.0. Also, you see the ego has a grip over the ritual. This one doobie that has this bud that is within your growth. It takes memories from your life, and with those memories, it has kind of a grip on it, on how you access them, how you express them, how you respond to them, and your practice and how you hone in on your identity is what gives you the ability to render yourself any which way. And I always felt like this mimicked the shape of a pencil, which was my tool. And as I said earlier in this episode, my teacher. And always, it's less important that this is seen as nug or bud or flower, but more important that it's seen as metaphors for something more root, more underlying anything that you were to observe. I just use this cannabis as a motif for this storytelling and archetypal structure. And I also felt like all of these pieces that I drew and rendered from another person's process were equivalent metaphors, like the doobie. They were part of an expression of their practice and what they rolled up as a result of how they understood themselves and their life experience. And like all these different parts of myself, the guy in the soul patch, the guy swinging from the swing set into self-identity, the guy sitting at the roots of his experience, the guy hanging out at the edge of their mind palace, there was another facet of myself. And they're all important to understand. There was another facet of myself at the foot of the ego dragon, at the foot of life experience, which your ego is an expression of. He's kind of sharing a ritual with the dragon and isn't intimidated by the life experience. And you can't really see it so well, but the smoke trailing from the doobie or from his exhale is spelling out milk, which was a important external experience that helped me understand my identity as an artist. And like I would milk, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I would milk things from my life. I would milk it for whatever potency it had. And that's also, you milk from the bud to receive access to the state of mind, the psychoactive facets of what you consume. And milk was also a great teacher, writing the same word. Mastering one thing teaches you how to approach any new future endeavor. Mastering one word can teach you a lot about any other thing to observe and how many different ways it can be expressed. or shared or understood. True Chalk, Artist Styley, obviously my boy Solo, who goes by Soji. But keep in mind, all of this, the body of this character is made out of glass. Your relationship with your community is fragile. You can make one negative impression that can be irreversible, unmendable, and it's RIP to that one part of your community. You can break an arm, you know? But if you understand that fragility and value of your community, your relationship with your community, then you know how to tend to it, keep it in a safe space, still show it off, you know, cast a good light on it to show its positive attributes, but don't put it at risk where you may break a part of your community, which will break a part of yourself. And you know, you lose a friend and it hurts, you lose a family member and it hurts, you lose a relationship and it hurts, because you're breaking a glass type metaphorical part of yourself that feels like you're breaking a limb. Like it just hurts. So it's important to be careful with this part of yourself, because your community is what holds up your identity. It's the shoulders that your head rests upon. I always feel like that phrase, "there's a chip on your shoulder," kind of suggests your relationship with your environment and what that can do to your approach to life. And I've always felt like there was a chip on my shoulder, and it's affected how difficult it has been for me to invite people into my life. Like I always felt like I was always going to be misunderstood, and that made me scared to invite people. But when you meet other artists that have gone through similar things, it's like all the chips on their shoulder, ironically, fill in the gap of your chip through understanding, which was the root of the misunderstanding, was the root of my chip, and what was removed from me that felt like it couldn't be replaced. And on either end, you see these two characters that are representing the yin and the yang, but kind of toxic traits, like the hyper angel and the hyper vigilant demon. And they both have valid points, but you kind of have to be between them. You need to find a balance between their validity in order to make a choice for yourself. So at the time, I used the relationship that I was in, I used her as an archetypal figure in the higher self. She's this embracing, comfortable, almost too comfortable influence in this relationship with myself. The yin wants to embrace the ego, embrace the life experience, and help it feel comfortable, like you can relax. It's okay. Take a breather. Like ease into your position. And she's in like a onesie, a Totoro onesie, and is just comfortable herself. She's comfortable with herself, oxymoronically. She's comfortable with herself, and that comfort with themselves is supposed to help you understand the comfort that you can access always within yourself. And behind her are these symbols that share like what helped me access a ability to be comfortable with myself. One, my relationship with my cat Meowgie, who's sleeping behind us, and just seeing him get comfortable. He'd be rambunctious all day, and then boom, he found a perfect spot in the house, and he'd fall fast asleep and make it look like he was cloud 9, maybe even cloud 10, just sleeping in empty space, and I'm like, I would always see him in any part of my life and be like, oh, that's always there. I have that option. And also seeing my relationship with her and her relationship with Miyagi, like she always wanted to make sure Miyagi was comfortable and could access that part. And it was just all like a chain link of connections. And also you see I drew a milkweed behind because we were growing milkweeds. And that milkweed relationship with the milkweed helped me understand the different levels of ourself we have access to, like the different, like we can have an ego death and then have an ego rebirth, and seeing that relationship that caterpillars had, they ate, consume, cocoon, butterfly, lay eggs, pollinate, and rinse and repeat, and more butterflies would emerge. But that relationship with that natural phenomenon is within us as we explore all the different versions of ourselves that we can be. And you see these characters kind of roaming the milkweed space as fully realized selves, kind of like these fairies. Also, one character here is a Totoro version of this relationship. Like I put relevant pieces that made me think of relaxation or my practice that led to this awareness of these facets of myself. You got like Miyagi here as glass, and then her as glass, and then them in reciprocal positions. I wanted to make relationships between what I learned from the bonds that I shared with these creatives and what I learned about my access to the yin sides of myself. And in the center, close to the heart, we have these pieces that make me think of my heart space and what blossoms from it, but also the chaos that can emerge. You have this happy little rain cloud. That's actually in the actual piece it has a rainbow lightning bolt, a lightning bolt of pure light, white light that holds all the colors in the rainbow, kind of raining down on this floral piece. And right below it is this empty space that is my heart. Not to say that the heart is empty, but that the heart is a place where you can relax, or it's a place where you shouldn't let all of this seep into and fill and cluster it. It should be that one place that is safe from the mind. The mind should respect the heart space and not touch it. Similarly to the smile, like there's this connection between your smile and the heart. It's this void space that holds infinity. And the ego's kind of soul patch beard type thing is dripping into the heart ever so slowly, but not enough to ripple it all the way. It's just a little drip. There's actually a little person right here. You can't really see it all too well, right at the tip of this mouse's ear, who is on the edge of the heart, trying to look in and understand themselves, reflect on themselves by staring into the pool of their heart space. And they have their arms kind of resting on top of their folded knees. And right next to it, we have the Grim Reaper from the Adventures of Billy and Mandy, the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. And they're right in between these two characters and right on the edge of the heart. Just a reminder that life is so fragile. On the other side, we have the Yang, who I use my eldest brother as a symbol for. He is the epitome of hyperactivity, has to be aware of everything in life and popular culture. And if there is something to access, he will access it. It's something to admire, but also to feel for. And in his shirt, he has the dragon kind of coming in and out, having all these different effects on his lifestyle. And on his arm, he has this sleeve of all these women kind of in male gaze type of positions and very provocative. And I felt like life is kind of the woman around him. It was very provocative and kind of pulls in his attention, so he must have an influence, and that's kind of the driving point of the yang energy. You are allured by all the things in life and you want to have a hand in it. And he has these three figures. Two figures are himself, two parts of himself that are, one's relaxed and one's like erect. And I use that because he has always two phones on his person. One's his gaming phone, one's his social work phone. And when one is relaxed, the other is alert. And when that one goes relaxed, the other is alert. And he doesn't really have a break. He goes from one to the next. But you kind of have to hope that one access to the yang in that practice is relieving on some level. The hat he's wearing it's made out of the same texture that the dragon's built out of, that the beard's made out of, all the nuggetry that is a symbol for life, memories, experience. And he kind of wears his thinking cap, and that thinking cap kind of drives where he lays his attention. And he's married and I put her around his wrist because regardless of what I think of her on any level, which is irrelevant, for him as a symbol, to have her as an influence to kind of not restrict, but influence what he's doing with himself. It's like at the corner of his peripherals of him having a relationship with himself, there's a part of him that's trying to kind of take his attention away from these external parts of himself and to look at something else. Which is something I've really tried to learn in my own life. Like, don't always look at yourself, or when you've looked at yourself enough, take your eyes off the page and admire the beauty of nature, admire the beauty of synchronistic moments that surround you, and admire just something else, and go in and out of that relationship with yourself and your surroundings. And here we have the milkweed, this natural influence, and the kitty. And then here we have this man-made influence, these comics stacking, just a stack of comics, kind of embedded in all the hairs of the ego. And underneath that we have his dog, Sway, R.I.P. Sway. He was the best dog that ever lived. He's kind of laying there looking for a belly rub. Here, Meowgies doesn't want to be disturbed. He's found his comfort spot. But here, Sway wants to be disturbed with belly rubs. He looks comfortable inviting belly rubs, and that's very yang energy. He's like, come on, let's make something happen. You know you want to. And from all of this self-analysis, from everything that led up to this moment, you've noticed that color has not been a thing. It has all been a black and white, this or that, yin or yang kind of experience. But from all of this, through a self-awareness, you kind of go through this portal of like intent to get to know yourself and why you've done this or that. And you make it through this portal, which is kind of suggested through this rim where it's it's like this character came from one side of the portal and emerged and is like looking at the world that they've been trying to access this whole time, this awake version of themselves, and they're only like chest deep through this portal, but just that is enough to capture something in that space with your gaze and be like, whoa. And that self-realization where you understand the access you have to the world is illuminating, and it sheds light on what you've been missing out on. Like, it's taken so much intricate analysis and just self math to finally get to a point where you can look past all of this clusterfuck of existence and see the colors, see the luminosity of existence, how beautiful it is. It's full of all this stuff, but in between the lines, or in this case around them, there is this more simple but impactful part of life, which is the color, which was not acknowledged at any point during this series for other personal reasons I might get into later on. But the color is emitting from this self-awareness, emitting from the understanding of the self. And through that understanding, there is this kind of bubble lens where no matter where they look, they're looking through a filter of beauty. And no matter how they feel, no matter how intense they are, like how intensely they're composed, what they're staring at through the mechanism that is themselves is beauty on every direction. No matter where they look, at whatever point, it's beautiful to them. They can kind of ignore the storm or overlook the storm and see the beauty of their surroundings. And I also, to kind of invite the color of their surrounding space, I wanted to remove the square that all of my pieces had been framed in. This constricting space that limited themselves to this square existence. Like they were always boxed in. And I wanted to frame it right on the edge of this self-awareness and almost make this, it's like almost like a globe, like a snow globe. This microcosm of the world within this snow globe. And then from within, you look out and everything surrounding you is the color of the world. Wherever this piece is, surrounding that piece is the color of the world. I took a picture before where it was laid on top of a garden that my partner at the time was working on. And you just had all the colors of the grass and the soil, random leaves and things like that surrounding its space. So this was what I understood about myself, but what I understood about myself was just one blip in the beautiful world that surrounded me. And the character here is staring out of the page, out of this constricting space, into the world around them that inspired them, that they pulled from to build their self-awareness. They're constantly looking out, constantly building who they are, recomposing what they see them or what they feel themselves to be, but they keep their mind on the prize, which is the beauty of the world, how grateful they should be to have access to this space. So yeah, that is Dom, the pure state of being. As much as I'm able and willing to talk about it for the sake of this somewhat short episode, I try to keep these short so I don't get lost. I can ramble on and on and on and on. But trying to keep these concise, trying to find the key words to pull into my story as I continue down the line into Peillustrations, which this whole series is about. How everything that you see hereafter is infused with all the lessons, just like this is composed of all of these observations. What I do now is composed of all of these microcosmic observations. They built a staircase to a place to access, and then from that plateau, I enter the Peillustrations. But we have one more iconography, which is the portal that this character, once he steps completely through with his body, he roams, and in this portal he docks at this place that we'll go into later, and that docking space is the shoreline of the world of Pi. But yeah, I think we will leave this episode at that. I appreciate anyone that sticks around for these, gives me the time of day to hear me out. It's important for me, if anyone wanted to know what these are about, to hear, at least a surface level excavation of the concepts that these pieces revolve around, what they're built from. So yeah, thanks again for being here. Stay tuned for the next episode, episode 18, and enjoy the, following casual, playful episode of the Peibi Playhouse right after I finish talking here. And as always, have a great day, have a great night, and have a great time in general. Peace. Huh? Aw, man, again? DMP, it's another day with DMP. He's made out of clay. DMP, the Dutch Master Peibi and friends. DMP, take the chance and play with DMP. He's here to stay. DMP, the Dutch Master Peibi and friends. Alright, number 1, you ready to play Mortal Kombat? Nah, number 3, I think I should be player 1, right? I'm number 1, so I should be player 1. Nah, number 1, it doesn't work like that. I'm player 1. Alright, number 3, let's Pi Blade battle it. Okay, number 1. But I'm coming at you with my blueberries, so get ready to lose. Yeah, I don't know about that, number 3. Check out these cherries. Okay, ready? Let it rip! Ooh, look at that, number 1. This is mine. I don't know, number 3. Look at that. Oh, damn, you're right. Nah, blueberries. Come on. No. Ooh, that's mine, number 3. Player 1's mine. Ooh, pew. Let's go.